Only this wasn't a nightmare. I was awake. You mean the part where you tried to kill me? He dragged a tanned hand through his curly hair. I never tried to kill you, Suze, he said, sounding a little hurt. I'm just not very good at losing, you see. He had tried to kill me. Worse, he'd done his best to eliminate Jessie, and now he was trying to pass the whole thing off as bad sportsmanship? I don't get it, I said. You didn't lose anything. Didn't I, Suze? His gaze bore into mine. Then he said, Look, it's a new school year. Can't we make a new start? No, we can't. In fact, you'd better stay away from me. He seemed to find this deeply amusing. Or what? You'll sick Jessie on me? Just then my friend Cece, who'd been following Adam in the direction of his locker, even though we'd solemnly sworn to each other the night before over the phone that we were not going to start off the new school year chasing boys, came over to us. Who's your friend? She wanted to know. He thrust one of those cool, strong hands at her. Hi, I'm Paul Slater. Nice to meet you. There was nothing in that statement that could have alerted Cece to the truth, that Paul Slater was sick and manipulative. Cece Webb, you must be new here. Paul blinked. His eyelashes were really long. It had sort of a sexy rock star effect. I glanced at Cece. She had spent her summer working in the nonprofit sector and didn't have a lot of money to blow on back-to-school wardrobe and makeup, which was a good thing since, being an albino, she had to special order all of her makeup anyway. She was one of the most sensible people I had ever met, but are any of us really immune to the sexy rock star type? My first day, Paul said, still grinning. Lucky for me, I already happened to be acquainted with Miss Simon here. Did you used to go to Suze's old school? No, I said quickly. He didn't. Look, we better get to homeroom. But Paul wasn't worried about getting into trouble. Suze and I had a thing this past summer, he informed Cece. A thing? She echoed. There was no thing, I hastened to assure her. It was clear she didn't believe me. Well, why should she? I was her best friend, it was true. But had I ever once been completely honest with her? No. And she clearly knew it. Oh, so you guys broke up? No, we didn't break up, Paul said with a knowing smile. Because we were never going out, I wanted to shriek. He's not what you think, Cece. He looks human, but underneath that studly facade, he's a... Well, I didn't know what Paul was, exactly. But then what did that make me? Paul and I had far more in common than I was comfortable admitting. Well, I said, slamming my locker closed. Gotta go. Homeroom calls. Paul looked down at the books in my arms. You won't find them in there, he said, nodding at the books. Cece looked bewildered. I won't find what in here? I asked. The answers you're looking for. Paul's gaze was intense. Why you, of all people, were chosen, and what exactly you are. He was talking about the gift we shared, he and I. Cece stood there staring at the two of us as if we were speaking a foreign language. When you're ready to hear the truth about what you are, you'll know where to find me, Paul said. And then he walked down the breezeway, unaware of all the sighs he drew from my female classmates. Cece looked at me. What was that guy talking about? And who on earth is Jessie? I couldn't tell her, of course. I knew only one person, one living person anyway, who knew the whole truth about people like Paul and me, and that was only because he was one of us. As I sat in front of his mahogany desk, I couldn't help letting out a groan. How could this have happened? At nearly 65, Father Dominic, principal of the Junipero Serra Mission Academy, was a white-haired, spectacled Adonis. Susannah, I'm sorry. I've been so busy with preparations for the Father Serra Festival this coming weekend, I never glanced at the admission rosters. He was sorry? He wasn't the one who had to be in the same classes with Paul Slater. I was going to have to sit there and look at the guy who tried to off my boyfriend and leave me for dead. Although I don't honestly know what I could have done to prevent his being admitted, Father Dom said, rifling through Paul's file. His test scores, grades, teacher evaluations, everything is exemplary. You can't tell anything about a person's moral fiber from a bunch of test scores. I'm a little defensive about this topic, on account of my own test scores having been mediocre enough to have caused the academy to balk at accepting my application last year when my mother announced we were moving to California so that she could marry Andy Ackerman, the man of her dreams, and now my stepfather. "No, you cannot," Father Dom agreed with a deep sigh. "Susannah, are you really so certain this boy's motives are less than noble? Perhaps Paul is looking for guidance." "Yeah, Father Dom," I said sarcastically, "and maybe this year I'll get elected homecoming queen." Father D ignored that remark. "I am going to assume, until we've seen something to prove otherwise, that Paul is here at the Mission Academy because he wants to make a fresh start. And it is our duty, as charitable human beings, to help him do just that." I thought this was the worst plan I had ever heard in my life. "Now," Father D said, leaning back in his chair, "how are you, Susannah? And how's Jessie?" I felt my cheeks flame. Fine." "Good. There was a book he mentioned he wanted to borrow." Oh, yes. Here it is." Father Dom removed a giant leather-bound book from his bookshelf. "Critical Fury Since Plato. Jessie ought to like that." I didn't doubt it. Jessie likes some of the most boring books known to man. Possibly this is why he wasn't responding to me the way I wanted him to, because I was not boring enough. Reluctantly, I left the principal's office carrying the dusty old tome. I tried to tell myself that I was overreacting, but what was Paul doing here? And how did he know so much about the talent he and I shared? I am as clueless now practically as I had been back when I was little and known only that I was, well, different from the other kids in my neighborhood. Even Father Dominic didn't claim to know exactly what we mediators were and where we'd come from and just what exactly were the extent of our talents. Sure, we can see and speak to, and even kiss and punch, the dead, or rather, with the spirits of those who had died leaving things untidy, something I'd found out at the age of 6 when my dad, who passed away from a sudden heart attack, came back for a little post-funeral chat. But was that all mediators were capable of? Not according to Paul. I was trying not to think about the Paul thing at lunch when, sandwiched on an outdoor bench between Adam and Cece, I nearly choked on my diet soda after Cece went, "So, spill. Who's this Jessie guy anyway?" "Yeah," Adam said. "And how come this Paul guy knows him and we don't?" Paul was sitting on a bench not too far away, surrounded by Kelly Prescott and the other popular people in our class. "Jesse's just a guy," I said. "Just a guy?" Cece repeated. "Just a guy you are apparently going out with?" "Well," I said uncomfortably, "sort of. It's complicated." Complicated? My relationship with Jessie made Critical Fury Since Plato look like the pokey little puppy. "So," Cece said, "where'd you two meet?" I could not believe I was actually sitting there discussing Jessie with my friends when I'd worked so hard to keep them in the dark about him. He, lives in my neighborhood," I said. "He go to RLS?" Adam wanted to know, referring to Robert Louis Stevenson High. "Not exactly." "Don't tell me he goes to Carmel." "He's not in high school anymore. He, graduated already." "Whoa," Cece said. "An older man. What is he, in college?" "Not really," I said. "He's, taking some time off to kind of find himself." "How long have you guys been going out?" "It's all sort of new," I said, feeling pretty miserable now. "And it isn't really, well, I don't really like to talk about it." "Talk about what?" Squinting, I looked up and saw my 13-year-old stepbrother, David, standing there. "Nothing," I said quickly. "Did you see this?" he asked, shoving a piece of paper beneath my nose. It was a bright orange flyer advertising a hot tub party.